Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? You can see my screen okay? All that? So my name is Duke Marr. I'm the SVP of Digital Strategy at Cora, which is a global elite partner of Magento, and we're here to talk about PWAs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine McLean. I'm the Executive Creative Director at Cora.
Cool. So the title says everything you ever wanted to know but were afraid to ask. We're not going to go too deep into the everything. There's a lot being said about PWAs right now. What we really want to share with you guys today is our perspective being on the front lines of what's happening with PWAs from a agency perspective as they're really entering the market and becoming a big part of the conversation.
And in fact, actually, Duke just got off a red eye this morning, having spoken to one of our clients about PWAs.
And I'm going to blame that red eye on all of our technical difficulties.
Perfect.
Yes, I did. So we were speaking with a new client yesterday that we've just started working with, who is migrating from Magento 1 to Magento 2. And they were vaguely familiar with the concept of a PWA. They sort of knew what it was, but didn't have any real sense. So part of our mission in meeting with them yesterday was to convince them to let us build one of our several first PWA reference applications on their behalf. And luckily they said yes.
But I think one of the questions that we've even been sitting with, it's definitely something that's on the top of all of our minds. We keep hearing about it today, over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months. And I think, we're sitting here internally debating this. What does this mean? What does this mean to our consumers? What does this mean to our clients? What does this mean to our businesses? Why should we care about PWA? It feels like there's always something new coming down the horizon. What does PWA mean to us, and how should we be paying attention to it?
And the thing that's really struck me over the last few months is the degree to which it's kind of gone from a side conversation that was happening to the forefront of discussion. So quotes like this from Forrester: "It's time for everybody to make a PWA." Or what Jason Woosley had to say, and we love Jason. We talk to him all the time, but he's like, if you're working with any clients who are migrating from M1 to M2, they just need to build a PWA. So there's, my skeptical response kind of starts to wonder. It's like, is this, a bunch of hype? Is this really everything that's cracked up to be? Because I want to be skeptical when everybody starts saying the same thing.
And I think, us sitting here as the gone through this a few times, this is not the first time we've gone around the block. What makes this different? We were all part of the last 10 years where we all had to pivot when everything moved to responsive. We all had to pivot when we were going mobile first. We all had to make sure we had a standalone native app in conjunction with our mobile web browsing. So why now? What does the PWA era mean to us, and how is it going to be different from all of these other opportunities and platforms and ways we architect our site in years gone past?
And I think the real question is, if we're entering the age of the PWA, how long is it going to last? And is it worth the investment on behalf of our clients?
Absolutely.
So a few stats to kind of ground things. We all know app usage is declining. Consumers that are surveyed will say 53% of them are not using retailers' apps because it's easier to use a website. So that's what they're doing instead.
However, we know that mobile is continuing to grow, and we know that commerce is moving more towards mobile in a serious way. So it's something really to be mindful of as we move forward.
Absolutely.
And I think, as we dissect this, if we think of ourselves as consumers, if we think of ourselves as consumers, and we think of our brands and their businesses and their consumers, we really need to be aware that, we're a very always-on culture, we're a very always-on audience. We're not thinking so much in channels anymore. We're very much a channel agnostic at this point, and I think really what we're looking for is the best experience. So whether that comes in an app form or a mobile first or a PWA, it's really fundamentally irrelevant to us as consumers. We're just looking for a good engaging experience that works.
So I'm sure everybody here knows the functional benefits of a PWA, why to build one, and these are some of the benefits we went over with our client yesterday. But just quickly, you can work offline with minimal bandwidth. You have better voice and image search than you do on mobile web. More native-like design modalities, which for us is a real differentiator because Kat runs the design department at Cora. Connectivity independent. app-like, but really critical here is it's more discoverable. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of the App Store, of any App Store. You can, your consumers can find it quicker. But most critically, I think, and this is what sold our client yesterday, it's just speed. Nothing matters more in mobile or in e-commerce in general than speed. So, 53% of mobile users will abandon after 3 seconds if there's nothing on the page or very little on the page. So the ROI is there a dozen different ways you want to calculate it on speed alone.
All right, from a consumer standpoint, as Duke mentioned, we're clearly all impatient bastards. We want to be able to see what we want to see, and we want to have a really engaging experience. But from a business perspective, how does this change and evolve how we're strategically thinking about our digital presence? I think there's a couple of points to mention. I think as we... That was comfortable, right? As we... I also can talk really loudly, so if you can all hear me, I'm happy to just carry on like this. But as we continue to sort of move away from channel-specific content and channel-specific brand presences, we need to start thinking of our brands as an ecosystem. And how do we support and serve all of those ecosystems? So whether that's using headless as a way we architect or how we design and engineer our work, we need to really take a step back and look at our full ecosystem so that we can start supporting each of these areas in a seamless way.
And that's just worth underscoring. If you're going to build a PWA, you're going to build a headless architecture. If you build a headless architecture, omni-channel and omni-commerce stop being, theoretical buzzwords for a lot of smaller retailers and smaller merchants and become very real opportunities because your back end is now capable of being married to any type of front end you can envision on any type of platform. That's a huge technical advantage.
Yeah, essentially making ourselves future-proof, right?
Yeah. So the other thing to really keep in mind is conversion rates. Across any platform, a 1 second delay in speed is going to yield a 20% decline in conversion. And SEO. So we have a head of SEO at Core, a really smart guy. And I tried to get him really hard to make me a slide that says, Duke, this is why building a PWA is going to be good for SEO. And he wouldn't do it. He's like, well, Duke, it's not really that true. I can't give you a data point for your slide. I'm like, okay, Tony, that's fine. He's like, indirectly, it's true, however. The faster your site is, generally speaking, and the better your user experience is and the more engaging it is, the higher you will rank with Google in organic across all platforms, including desktop. So I can't give you a number, but I can say, if you build a PWA, you will eventually, you will enjoy organic search benefits.
So I think, there's a few key points that we wanted to showcase when it comes to PWA and the opportunities there. And I think one of the main ones that we wanted to call out is really the add to home screen. Now, I will say we need to be mindful that this is supported mainly with Android right now. So, when we're thinking about our businesses and when we're thinking about the audiences that we have and the consumers that you have in your business, you need to do a cost-benefit analysis with where they sit in terms of their mobile devices and the usage of that. However, iOS has always had the ability to add to home screen. They've just never messaged it as much and as well as Android has.
They make it really hard.
Yeah, they make it really hard. And, we've seen that there's been a huge improvement to some sites that have deployed and implemented the add to home screen functionality in terms of usage. Not only is it really launching that app-like experience, we're seeing more people engage with the site. There's less friction. They're not having to go to the store and download an app or pay for an app. And, people that are going there more frequently and at a low barrier of entry. So it's really working well. And there's some stats there around Alibaba and Flipkart seeing great improvement in conversion with being able to launch the home screen from their site. Perceived performance. So, Duke has mentioned how speed is really crucial to all of us, not only from a user standpoint, but also from a business standpoint and from a conversion standpoint. And I think what working with a PWA allows us to do is cache this information so that we can start to present information a lot faster. Not only do we have content skeletons that are sort of making that transition between load times a lot more faster, it's allowing that user to see that there is content coming as well as seeing some of the default content already presented there. So that's really helping bridge that gap between people bouncing off and dropping off and disengaging.
Notifications.
Yeah, it's a really good one, and especially from a marketing standpoint, this has seen huge improvement in terms of re-engaging with your consumer base. Not only can you start to message directly about new releases and new products and new launches, people that have allowed this to happen have seen more opportunity and more conversion in terms of their click-through rates and ultimately conversion. So it's really a good way to re-engage your customer and your consumer through these notifications. So I think, fundamentally you need to really look at your audience and look at the user group that you have. There are still some functionality that is not currently allowed on iOS. We believe that iOS is catching up for sure, but it is something to be mindful of. A lot of the features that we've presented today are currently only within Android, but we do believe that iOS is coming to the party. So, really good opportunity there in terms of how we're presenting content and able to iterate on the content.
And that, this is a tricky thing to explain to clients and prospects or even internal stakeholders. If you're thinking about a PWA, having to walk through, well, maybe you can use BeachRec on Android, but not on iOS today, but you might in a few years. That's a tricky, long-winded discussion.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of important to think about what we know and what we don't know. And I think, I think as an industry are learning an awful lot about PWAs as we go. But what we don't really know is kind of the question we started with. How long is this era going to last? And, as Kat said at the beginning, we both remember the age of, responsive, websites, when you had to drop everything and build a responsive website, when your m.site had been perfectly fine before that. And that was a big transition, and a lot of companies spent a lot of money doing that. And there's no reason to think in another 4 or 5 years there won't be another protocol we're going to move to. So I think we have to be transparent with ourselves about that this is not the end of the road. This is just a new twist and turn.
Evolution, yeah.
So to kind of conclude with the question we started with, is building a PWA a buzzword or a best practice? Well, yes. It's both. It is a buzzword. It is a best practice, and we should all be doing it. It's something that I'm, although I started out skeptical, I've become a believer, and we're starting to get our clients to believe us as well.
Correct.
Any questions? Sure.
I was around during that transformation to responsive and actually launched a site just before the reference site came out for Magento. So it seems like we're in a moment right now when there's no reference React site. Page builder doesn't work with React and PWA. Extensions are limited. So given all that and the prospect of notifications that add to home screen as a customer kind of scares me. What kind of I guess my question is what kind of premium, that's my preamble, then I'll what kind of premium does a customer client pay now to university?
So I can only speak to what we're doing. So we at Cora have made an executive decision that this is the wave of the future. So for our current clients that are willing to take this leap, be the first adopters, take this leap of faith with us, there will be no premium. We're gonna work that out with them because we recognize there's a learning curve. I don't know that every agency will take that attitude, or every internal technology team can have that luxury. But we're in a position where we feel it's important enough to our clients' long-term revenue that we will make sure they're not paying more to do it. Effectively, yes.
So I was in one of the technical talks earlier, also about PWAs, and they were talking about using React versus using Vue, and then they mentioned or something else like we really don't know how it might shape up. Maybe other JavaScript frameworks may come out that will also do the same. Do you guys have a specific preference, and why?
Can you repeat the question for other folks in here?
The question basically is, what JavaScript framework are we using? Are we going to use React? Are we going to use potentially something else? And to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not the most expert at Cora on this dimension of it, we will be using React, but I think we'll be looking at lots of things. Yes.
Short of rebuilding an entire site, can you have like a pop-out site that does certain functions with PWA that's not really?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I haven't considered that.
Yeah.
It's never come up before.
I think if we're trying to simplify or decouple our back end and our front end from our front end, I think that is counterintuitive to the objective, right? Because then now we've got two standalone experiences. So, yeah, without thinking through it a whole lot, I imagine we would want to try and maintain as one experience as possible, but worth a thought for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, how do you think this will, the PWAs will change in the front end on headless? Do you see Magento eventually then having to reconfigure the back end to send data forward like that to make it a little bit easier?
I don't know, potentially. You know, as I mentioned, we're very tight with Magento, but I can't speak to that specific question. I don't know. Sure.
Has it been costing you more to build PWA versus the traditional way, or cost-wise is?
Ask me again in about 6 months.
Yeah, not yet, but
We're in flight. We're speaking from in flight. We're in progress.
so far not so much.
How do you discuss disclosing the lack of iOS ability to clients?
Say that again, sorry.
How do you approach the conversation around they don't perform so well with iOS?
As transparently as we can. It's like,
Yeah.
this is what we know and this is what we don't know. I mean, you know, in my heart of hearts, do I think Apple might, change their minds and release some new protocol that guarantees them more revenue through the App Store? Sure, but, the tea leaves don't seem to say that, but my paranoia does kick in sometimes.
And I think we still have to remind ourselves that fundamentally speed and offline browsing is a huge added benefit irrespective of, iOS and Android. So yeah, we've got a lot of, extra sprinkles with regards to Android right now, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it just because iOS is not currently supporting it.
All right, one last question.
So, PWAs are a bundle of technologies. They have to technically get all of them to officially be a PWA. Do you see kind of partial adoption of this? I mean, if you don't offer the full screen, you're not technically a PWA, but that is the brand. So, what do you see there?
I kind of think it's semantics. I think, we need to approach it, or the way we approach it at Cora is like, what do we need to do to drive value for our customers? And that's going to be a fast site with a great experience. So whether or not you get the home screen or don't get the home screen, if it serves the purpose, then we strive for it. All right.
Thanks, everyone.